Press play. Do this over here. Seems like that went by pretty fast. Always be like that. All right. Okay. All right. 12, 8, 25. Turn that around. That right, shall. Plug that in. All right. Look at that AI summary. Discuss services. That AI, man, that's something else. No. Board it. Where's the board at? Where's the board? Alright, we got that. Got that relationship. Alright. Now, got that plugged in. That's plugged in. Alright, whatever. Alright. Action step number 1. Incorporate new focus around blacks. The original. and choice. All right. What we got here? Hello. All right. Come on. Action step number one: incorporate a new focus around blacks, the original people. With the exception of black people, all races of mankind claim to practice their own religion. Other population groups enjoy Other population groups enjoy the decided advantage of ascribing to religious philosophies, doctrines, and cultures that link them, in a positive way, to an omnipotent being. Black people suffer the double disadvantage of having been given various religions, such as Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and Hinduism, then subsequently relegated to and perceived as guest worshippers in the religion. This should never have happened. Black people hold a special place in biblical history, and we miss the boat when failing to claim that special place. It is difficult, if not impossible, to be respected and appreciated when religions of which you are a part teach black inferiority and condemnation. Now is the time for black churches in America to use their spiritual and cultural inheritance to promote the interests of black Americans. Black ministers can use our spiritual history and reclaim our rightful place as the first humans on earth. Just as Jewish people claim to be the chosen people, the American Indians claim to be Native Americans, black people can lay claim to being both religiously and biologically the first humans or the original people on earth. Moreover, Africa is the birthplace of all mankind. These ancestral claims are important because they set precedents and demonstrate that black people have an historical importance and deserve respect that is not reflected in today's society. Recent DNA studies found a genetic link between the priest of the tribe of Levi and a group of blacks in the Middle East whose religious practices and oral traditions have tied them to the Levites for centuries. We are the ancestors of all people: whites, Asians, American Indians, and Hispanics. When black churches and black ministers illuminate and teach these racial and religious truths, they make important contributions to truth, and to reversing erroneous church teachings. Action step number 2: develop and instill a group code of conduct. For the sake of group stability and functionality, every group or society should have an organization whose primary responsibility is the promotion of its social cohesiveness, values, norms, conformity, and way of life. Black churches in aggregate are the local or the logical institution to assume the responsibility to develop and instill a code of conduct in Black America. This group code of conduct should be based on two assumptions, which can best be taught by black churches. First, to overcome Willie Lynchism and build unity. Black churches should teach their members that God has assigned them to a skin color team. And when the team loses, everyone on the team will lose, regardless of their education, income, and social status. Second, churches can teach blacks to love and support the group to which they belong and never treat other people better than they treat their own people. Such group commitments would lay a solid foundation of acceptable behavior upon which blacks can begin to empower ourselves through group economics and group politics. White America and other ethnic groups have a code of conduct that defines the role and place of black people. Without our own code of conduct that teaches us how to support, love, and care for members of our own group, we would have no recourse but to continue to accept the majority society's code of conduct, which is not in our best interest. The majority society's code of conduct accommodates its needs. It is based on European beliefs and values, especially in white culture, superiority and individuality. Okay? It is based on European beliefs and values, especially in white culture, superiority and individualism. Their code of conduct advantages them while our lack of a code of conduct disadvantages us. Their religious institutions develop, promulgate, and enforce codes of behavior. As we build communities, our churches are the most appropriate institution to develop a code of conduct specific to our race and our community. The code of conduct should require us to fully respect and support one another for common goals of the race. With a code of conduct, we have a way to judge when we are working against our own best interests. This is especially true in regards to inappropriate behavior patterns. The black churches are the ideal institutions to develop and promulgate standards of behavior. They are in contact with a great number of black Americans, and for the first time, we could have an orchestrated effort to recondition our behavior and teach us how we should interact with other members of our primary group and communities. The code should include a mechanism that rewards those who help and punish those who mislead the race. If we do not offer rewards and recognition, our leaders will seek it from other groups. The code of conduct should incorporate the group's need to hold individuals, organizations, and others accountable for the effects of their behavior on the group. Before the birth of Jesus Christ, mankind had the Ten Commandments. Since that time, every society has established governments and enacted laws primarily to protect the dominant group and to make their communities safe. Most of those laws are not designed for the benefit of a black minority. Black churches may be able to devise a code of conduct, but are there But are there examples of other cultures that have orchestrated a change in group behavior? Let's look at a society that has many of the values that we would like to have in our communities once they are built. The Japanese and other Asian communities are group oriented cultures that offer instructive models for ways to structure a code of conduct that binds a group together while promoting group competitiveness and tranquil communities. Their group based values are rooted in Confucianism, which is more of a code of conduct than a religion. Confucianism is a system of ethics and education that stresses love of family and ancestor worship. As a part of the Asian Code of Conduct, Confucianism is taught in their schools and churches in most Asian communities. Black Americans could benefit from the aspect of Asian culture that supports group self interest and places a high value on group competitiveness. Japan is particularly instructive because it made a purposeful cultural transition. Prior to World War II, Japan was a state oriented society and not a group or family oriented society. Their emotional and physical loyalties were totally devoted to the national government. Even more, even more than white Americans, they were very individualistic with blind patriotism and a militaristic mindset. With their defeat in World War II, the Japanese discarded many of those characteristics and replaced them with philosophies of Confucianism. It is 2:30 in Central Europe. Okay. Emotional loyalty. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Their new orientation sought to make Japanese society a cohesive group of families, friends, and communities. Mhm. They conceived new ideologies that taught them how to respect each other and work together for the common good of the group. This ethical code of conduct was articulated by the religious community and incorporated into the public policy of all of Japan's institutions. Mhm. It shortly became standard operating procedures for the state. If a code of conduct can have such a powerful impact that it turned the Japanese society away from individualism and blind patriotism, then it has potential for blacks to build a sense of togetherness and to instill values of respect, trust, support, and care for each other. Action step number three, build a black alliance across religious dominations. It is self defeating. It is self defeating shades. It is self defeating shades of Willie Lynchism for blacks to build self contained economic and political bases that do not transcend church property lines or denominational lines. Black ministers should remember that black people were not enslaved and segregated because of their religious dominations or because of the church because of the church they attended. They were subordinated and exploited because of their group skin color. Therefore, any efforts to aid black people should place skin color before religious denomination. Black religious organizations that subscribe to the powernomics goals of a sufficient and competitive black community should form together into a national network or alliance. Black people have lost their historical religious identity and are scattered across nearly every religious denomination or sect. Black people's original religion was ancestor worship, just as in the Asian and Egyptian societies. All other religious denominations were given to black people by white masters and overseers. The goal of the alliance should be group unity in dealing with racial problems, even while there are differences in religious dogma. The body the body could also serve to more fully develop a national empowerment plan for religion. One of the first elements it should look at is a sensitive but crucial issue of deficits in Black America: the lack of a national mechanism to make contacts and raise funds to support critical issues and events for black people. Here is a wish list of causes religious that a religious alliance could support with fundraising. Fundraiser number one should be a legal fund. This fund would develop and file legal actions in the various court systems to achieve powernomics goals through complaints, challenges, or lawsuits that address the lost legal and economic rights of black Americans and other critical issues. Heading the list would be legal efforts to reclaim the 14th Amendment, reverse the Dred Scott decision, and initiate reparations lawsuits to recover some financial remuneration from thousands of government and private entities that have deprived blacks of our rights, wealth, and lives. Fundraiser number two should be a land tax certification program and land bank. The primary purposes of land program would be to halt the loss of black-owned land through public auctions or failure or inability to pay public property taxes. Create a black land bank through which blacks could either save, buy, or sell their lands and keep land within the black race. The bank would monitor tax rolls, especially in the South, and either purchase the tax certificates on delinquent taxes or lend the money to black landowners to pay taxes. The property inventory would be available to blacks seeking to develop either urban or rural agricultural lands. Fundraiser number three would provide educational funds, legal land certificate programs, okay, and educational would provide fundraiser number three would provide educational funds through their scholarships and grants to black youth seeking post high school education and training. The primary purposes of the education program ought to be to link formal religion and spirituality with educational achievement by providing educational options that reflect the Powernomics vision for from nursery school to graduate school. Nursery to graduate school. Provide funds to black youth who want to direct their efforts to achieve the Powernomics vision for Black America and specialize in skill areas such as business, economic research, computer sciences, math, engineering, and physics, for post-secondary education and vocational internships that will help develop group economics or politics. Funding programs similar to these above would bring black churches and their ministers back into the black empowerment equation. How much money should and could a black religious alliance systematically raise? The design of the fund by the alliance would reflect the degree of commitment by the church and its members. If we look at a simplistic example of ethnic aggregation resources, however, we can get some sense of scope. There are 10 million blacks who attend church regularly. If just 25% of them elected to support the Powernomics vision and contributed $1 a week, the Alliance could raise approximately $130 million per year. This would be a massive amount of economic clout for a modest investment. $1 a week is less than what we would spend on one evening at the movies or for a music CD. Ethno-aggregation across denomination lines would give the Religious Alliance a meaningful and powerful role. Cover the costs of the important programs and signal to the world that Black America is taking care of its own. A national religious alliance could also serve as a major distribution network for black products and services. A national black religious alliance could also serve as a major distribution network for for black products and services. As distribution outlets, Black America's 65,000 churches could draw income and compete with most of our language, ethnic, and gender networks. Okay. All right. We're gonna do this. All right. Action step number 4. Teach black economic prosperity. Since black ministers have long held a monopoly on black American spirituality, they should use it to economically enhance the quality of life for an impoverished black America. Black churches have a long history of That's good. Okay. Since black ministers have long held a monopoly on black American spirituality, they should use it to economically enhance the quality of life for an impoverished black America. Black churches have a long history of abetting the conditioning of blacks to believe that there is something virtuous and noble about being poor, downtrodden, or impoverished, or the impoverished underdog. Biblical scriptures condemn the love of money. The love of money. It does not condemn money. When Jews began migrating to this country in the latter part of the 19th century, nearly all of them were poor and impoverished. Their synagogues became the source of group unity. When Jewish children were young, the synagogues and the families taught the value of seeking out and buying from those in their own group. The synagogues taught their families the importance of gaining wealth, religious tithing, understanding and practicing capitalism, building Jewish owned and controlled schools, supporting the family and community, and using wealth to protect their homelands. Today, as a group, Jews are wealthy and politically powerful. Through preaching and teaching, churches could establish a value within their respective congregations for a moral obligation to acquire sufficient wealth and power to support our families, our church, our race, and ourselves. The parable of the master and the slave in Matthew chapter 25:14 is instructive. The scripture tells the story of a master who gave each of his three slaves a different amount of money before going on a journey. He instructed them to protect his money. When he returned from the trip, he called each slave to report how well he had done with his money. The first two slaves reported they had sizably increased the original amount they had been given. The third slave, however, reported that out of fear, he buried his money and failed to produce a profit. The master was furious. He took back what he had given the slave and cast him out. The lesson for Black America is that blacks should take whatever money or wealth they have been given by God and increase it. If we are to follow biblical responsibilities, we must have wealth. Churches can teach a biblical view of wealth, and it must be used to do what God intended. Expanding the role of black churches begins with teaching Black America to acquire wealth and power and how to use it appropriately. Poor people cannot help poor people. The amount of financial support received by the church is directly related to the financial condition of church members. Without it, the ministers cannot raise enough money to keep the church solvent and perform their religious work. In the context of our vertical integration paradigm, black churches and the cultural gifts they produce, music, songs, and dance, can provide the basis for alternative economic structures. We can produce and sell black consumer products within Black America that are primarily designed for black consumers, but can also be sold to the mainstream consumer. Look at the history of black music and song. As stated earlier, blacks have produced a wide range of musical forms from Dixieland and jazz to rhythm and blues and gospel, all of which had popular appeal for centuries. Black music represents an important acculturation, acculturation of blackness into the majority society and the world. It illustrates the way blacks as a group can surge outward and compete in the larger society while simultaneously retaining our own culture, peoplehood, and blackness. While black music can be the base of commercial products to jumpstart a vertical industry, the same thing can happen with our other products. In all instances, the black church can aggregate and distribute products derived from black cultural gifts and strengths. But if we whiten our churches and our culture, we run the risk of losing a major mechanism for addressing the unique problems, history, and socioeconomic needs of black people. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. It is time to exercise. It is time to exercise. Exercise, exercise.